I've been buked and I've been scorned. Awakening the conscious feminine in today's world. A couple weeks ago, I read an article in the New York Times about Mahalia Jackson and Martin Luther King on the anniversary of the 50th anniversary of the March on Washington. I don't know if all of you know about Mahalia Jackson, but Christmas in our house was not Christmas until Mahalia Jackson was singing, "It came upon the midnight clear." And Mahalia was there at the march that day. In fact, she sang 2 hymns, I've been buked and I've been scorned, and she sang I Got Over. And it was a large crowd, and they were restless, and they'd heard speaker after speaker. But when she sang, they all came together. A spark was lit. And she got the crowd all primed up, and then Martin Luther King came onto the platform. And he'd been up all night with his prepared remarks, trying to find just the right thing to say, the agenda to present, and all the advisors had been advising and stern consideration. So he was doing his prepared remarks, and the crowd was getting a little restless. And Mahalia said from the stage, "Tell him about the dream, Martin. Tell him about the dream." And Dr. Martin Luther King set aside his prepared remarks, and he launched into the I Have a Dream speech. And that is what I call the union of the conscious feminine with the unconscious masculine, perhaps. In a crucible, in a container of co-creation, of balancing energies that speak universal truths, of harmony, of peace, of dreaming of the unconscious and a new world. Conscious collaboration in creation. Now, some of you may be saying, now, what is this conscious feminine, Jennifer? I want a definition. It's an archetype. It's an energy. It's a principle. It's a metaphor. It's a container, a crucible where creativity can emerge, a womb, as it were. This summer, I attended a leadership workshop in Cincinnati called the Conscious Feminine Leadership Academy, and it was taught by a woman named Mary Pierce Brosmer. Mary was a teacher, and 20 years ago, she was teaching in the Cincinnati public school system creative writing, and she was using a variety of books, literature, to draw from, poetry. And there was a stealth religious candidate that became president of the school board, and apparently his daughter attended her class and found out that she was reading what he deemed to be feminist literature. The F word. It's only 20 years ago. She was asked to not teach from that book. And she said no. And she quit teaching. And she started her own school, and it was called Women Writing for a Change. And she said it was a safe container for women and others to foster their individual voice. no censorship. The Conscious Feminine Leadership Academy, she says, participating in the transformation of culture by creating, naming, and supporting leaders in the practice of conscious feminine values, which are truth-telling, empowerment, nurture with rigor, transparency, vulnerability, conscious collaboration, depth, orientation, hospitality, and the capacity to hold paradox, especially the paradox of fostering individual gifts alongside fostering planetary and community well-being. Whew. So that's what I was studying this summer. My son, my children are a little scared. But what we talked about in our circles this summer is about how we've been operating under an old paradigm. Patriarchy, religious oppression, racism, which Dr. King brought forth, sexism, misogyny, military might, corporate greed, the exploitation of the earth, covering over the earth with concrete. People think I'm crazy when I say I'm so glad the recession happened in Florida. And they're like, why? And I'm like, there would not be a single green thing left if not for that check on the system. This is the model of the unconscious masculine. Not a person, a mindset. It's not about gender. So while I was on the plane, I met one of the prophets. I always meet a prophet on the plane. This young guy, and he was telling me how he is a salesman in the business world, and he gets together in these groups with all the guys, and they're all joking around and talking and trying to be the big guy in the room. And he said, I feel very uncomfortable. I don't know what's wrong with me. I don't act like that. I said, maybe there's nothing wrong with you. Maybe there's something right with you. So I was telling him about journaling, and he said, that's interesting. I've written a lot, but I've never done any reflective writing. So he said, thank you for that. And then he said to me, now, I'll give you something. There's a book that I've read. It's called Your Survival Instinct is Killing You. So it's a good book. You should read it. I got it. And what it says is that our survival instinct as a society is killing us. We have never been so comfortable on the earth, and yet we've never been so uncomfortable with discomfort. We're still operating from our limbic brain that says, watch out, fear, conquer, territory, hold on to what I've got. There won't be enough. I have to dominate, be number one in order to survive. I call that the unconscious masculine. Fear killing us, killing our planet. Oh boy. All right, so what happens is, in this state, the feminine principle, that archetype, that energy, woman, oppressed, silenced, abused, patronized, marginalized. Not just women. Remember the young man in the corporate boardroom. That's what we call, I've been buked and I've been scorned. the situation in India, where this rampant sexual abuse of women in that culture is called Eve teasing. Teasing. The young woman who was shot in the head by the Taliban. It was Friday the 13th. You know, that used to be a day of celebrating Venus. But of course, in our new religious hierarchy, that was turned into a day that was fearful, among other stories. Friday the 13th, witches. I haven't heard the term women's libber for a long time. I heard it twice in this past week. I mean, not since the 70s, and I was arguing with the kids in my 7th grade classroom. It's a derogatory term. Yet a man I respect a great deal used it. A female lawyer I was with on Friday night used it. Women's lib, ha ha ha. But here's the one that killed me. I was on a marine biology trip with my daughter, a senior at the time at Episcopal. Fabulous daughter. I am so in awe of her. Love her classmates. Loved the school experience. I'm sitting there at the picnic table on my last field trip ever. And a woman next to me, who's apparently the 9th grade biology teacher, starts telling the story of how on leading the 9th grade biology trip, she asked 2 young women to read from scripture, and her son got up and didn't listen. And she said, "What are you doing?" He said, I can't listen to a woman be a spiritual leader. Timothy in the Bible. And I looked at her and I was like, "What?" And she said, "Oh, yeah, it's true. It says so in the Bible. Timothy, yeah, see, women are not supposed to be spiritual leaders, so my son would not listen to them." And she said, "Oh, that's ridiculous, honey. Listen to them." If I can tell you the rage that came up in me, that this woman, a biology teacher, who is leading young men and women, who led my son and my daughter, a scientist who is teaching her son by taking him to that place, to that church, that he is more valuable and more important to listen to than my beautiful daughter. That is what we call suppressing the female voice. And it is real, it is alive today, right now. I'm not in Pakistan. My daughter is not dealing with the Taliban. My son is in this woman's classroom. I am outraged. So I've learned about anger that sometimes when we're angry, it's also about ourselves. So, my anger is about how did I buy in? How did I become victim of? How did I squelch my own voice? What have I taught my children? Speak the truth and let go of the outcome. Femininity can no longer be limited, Marian says, to responsiveness, passivity, and mothering. It will discover and express its active, initiating, creative, and transformative capacity. The womb, both receiver, receptacle, container, and powerful emergent force. There are signs of the change coming. Barbara Marx Hubbard, the voice of the conscious evolution of our time, scientist, a futurist. She talks about the next wave in the spiral. Transformation coming. She says it's now. Dr. Jean Shinoda Bolen, she wrote a book called A Million Circles. Circles of women and others coming together in a crucible, a safe container to create change in the world. The women rose up in India. They've risen in many places. I was thrilled to see in the Syrian mess that after all that posturing that was going on by men that I actually respect, when President Obama said, okay, wait, we're going to give some time to this by putting it out to the larger world community, 10 days to consider this. And what happened in that space of time, in that crucible, in that container, a new solution emerged. When we allow space and time for principles like the conscious feminine to take hold, wonderful things can emerge. My own journey is that I too now am facilitating women's circles. I'm finding my own harmony and balance with the yin and yang energy of masculine and feminine within me and in the universe. I'm trying to learn how to express my individual voice based on the values that I line up with. I'm trying to care for the container of myself, my family, my community. I'm learning to dance. I'm learning to sing. I'm learning to play the ukulele. And I'm writing, leaving white space between the lines and margins around the page for other truths to emerge. I must read you one journal entry. At the end of the course, Mary asked us to write a letter to somebody about the conscious feminine. And I wrote to my son, because sometimes he gets a little afraid about mom and her women's circles. May I read this to you? Dear Matthew, dear son of mine, I love you. I love you so completely and so wholly because you are love. You are the embodiment of love and the expression of love. Ever since you were a tiny baby, I could see that and feel that. I remember bringing you home from the hospital. I was so much more relaxed this time, second child. I had 2 whole days at the hospital that time, and at least 1 full night of good sleep. The ride home from the hospital down Britannia Street to the little green Camelback Victorian, carefully guarded by your father, beautifully manicured, was smooth this time. No crying, no tears, no fears, no worries. The little house was waiting for us, and we passed through the iron gates into the sanctuary. Up the porch steps, into the hallway, lighted by block colors of the stained glass reflections from the window, and into the family room. The glistening wood floors, ancient cypress, invited us in. The green couch, soft, plump, inviting, awaited us. I curled up on the couch. with you tucked into the crook of my arm, both of us snuggling onto the luxury of the white sheepskin, and we napped. I was aware that your father was taking a picture of us with the thin, long, old-style snapshot camera, and I smiled a little, only glimpsing him through my eyelashes. For a moment, it was just the three of us in the circle, your sister Camille safely tucked into another family circle for the day with her cousins. The love was profound. There is nothing more complete than the circle, the nest where the mother nestles with the baby and the father guards at the door, satisfied, filled with love that reaches deep into the universe and anchors there. You were born in love and you were raised in love. It was heartbreaking, I know, to break that circle. It pulled like a sudden yank on the universe cord and then was broken, the ends of the cord floating in the blackness, forlorn, lost. And yet the ends can be tied together again to another spot in the cosmos. Out of chaos comes order, the Big Bang, and then growth. Will the circle be unbroken? By and by, oh by and by. We are still a circle, the two of us, the three of us, the four of us, the world of us, and the circle is fueled by, energized by one mighty force, love. Simply love. Not fear. So I do not want you to be afraid, Matthew, as you watch me spin myself out from my new starting point, my new spiraling circle, my new anchor. It does not mean that I don't love you, just because the circle is a woman's circle for now. I am a woman giving birth to myself. You are a young man giving birth to yourself. We're both simply learning, opening our eyes slowly to the world, looking through our eyelashes to all the good that is available to us each day. The circle is unbroken. The love is complete. You are a bright and shining star in the middle, swirling out from me, my womb, tethered by an umbilical cord, invisible, that always connects us. As all of us, all four of us, go out in the world, free, loved, whole, and complete exactly as we are. Love, Mom.